Money. The game everyone plays, but few win. Extracting the knowledge from the top 1%. And teaching you the ever-changing rules of play. It's time to level up and take control of the money game.
Let's talk money.
Big money. Yes!
Welcome back to the money game. We've got a very long-awaited special guest for you. Big treat. Just introducing him for all you guys, if you're a first-time listener, obviously purpose of the podcast, just again to reiterate this, and this is why I'm excited about this guest, is just to reprogram people's relationships with money, success, wealth, finance, how to develop that. And so we have the title, The Money Game, it's just like any sport. There's rules of the game, there's strategies, there's technical skill sets and key mindsets that everybody needs to play it and have fun and to enjoy and have success in it. But today, the special guest, we got a treat for you guys. I've been trying to get this guy on for like 3 years, but he's been dodging me. He's a busy dude. But welcome to the show, Executive Vice President of Cardone Ventures, Jeremy Gabbert. What's up, bro?
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Dude, we're stoked.
It's been a long time.
I know. I think the last time we chatted was when we got my buddy David back when you were with Dean.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I actually connected with him in California.
No way.
I haven't seen him for a long time, and then obviously we went to the same school, and then he showed up at an event that I was at. I was like, man, small world.
Dude, it is crazy, especially for you guys listening. Jeremy actually grew up in the same town, and then for some of you guys who have listened to the episode with David, we all grew up in Kearney.
Yeah, we were neighbors.
Different classes. Yeah, we were neighbors for a minute.
Yeah.
Just crazy, weird full circle of how things have like kind of come together. But I know something I want to jump into right off the bat.
Let's do it.
Obviously, dude, I think it's been, a year since you've been with Grant?
Almost 2. Yeah, it's been, I guess, a year and a half, 18 months.
So pretty fresh.
Yeah.
Pretty fresh. So I think all of the listeners know who that guy is. Everybody knows Cardone Capital Venture. He's everywhere right now. Dude, you're from Kearney, same place as me. This is the apex of like, you have built a career of the biggest in the game in wealth, success, reframing, reprogramming, strategy, skill sets. How the heck did you even end up with this dude?
It started with your dad. Started with Steve, man.
Oh, Steve, dude. Just a connector.
Yeah, it was, literally, this is how great I am grateful for your dad is because when I was a light-duty mechanic up at Crossroads in Kearney.
Okay.
Got laid off in 2008 because of the economy. And I needed another job because I was doing COE in high school. And so I was like, Steve, I need a job. I knew he ran. I didn't even actually know what he did.
Nobody does.
But I knew that he was like one of the very few people in the town that had an Escalade. And I would see him in the Range Rover. And I was like, I don't know what he really does, but I want to model this guy.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what it was, but like that was like the first thing that I wanted to do. I was like, I'm just going to model him and just try to like get in. And he's like, hey, you're hired. I know your work ethic already. Like he even like he's like, you start tomorrow. I was like, great. What do I do? He's like, just go here. And started doing customer service for book orders. Dean was one of them. Anthony Morrison was one of them.
This is back when they were running Dean stuff still.
Oh yeah. This was just when kind of Dean started to take off. It was right after Be a Real Estate Millionaire, and it was Profit from Real Estate Right Now.
Yeah.
They were doing like 6,000 book orders a week. It was wild. And so I was just picking up the phone, and long story short, started managing some of the customer service there. I learned that, if you could upsell somebody coming in from a book order to our sales floor, like you get a little $50 gift card. I was like, man, that's everything. That's gas money for the week.
Like, this is sick.
I know. So I started to teach myself how to sell and how to set up the sell and how to pre-frame because I wasn't actually selling it. I was just setting it up for the sales floor. And if it closed within like 7 days, you get the gift card. And then pretty soon, I was just like, I loved Dean's stuff. I loved real estate, did my first deal when I was 17 because I wanted to just like, I was like, if I could understand this process, then I can sell it better to people and get them into the program and show them what we can actually do. And then, Dean flew out, met me. He's like, I don't know who you are, but I know that you take care of all this stuff here. They always just say, send it to that Jeremy kid at Steve's office. Flew out on his private jet, and he's like, I want to meet you. And he's like, I got to have you. He's like, I need you to move out to Arizona. So I worked with your dad for like 2.5 years.
Okay.
And then I flew out Arizona when I was 20 and started working with Dean and just learning the trade, learning sales, marketing, everything.
Dude, that is That's so crazy. I want to just break down a little bit. Obviously, I know where you grew up, Kearney. Like anyone's listening, this is like the edge of KC, and this Kansas City right now is kind of exploding. There's a lot of affluence coming in, but 20, 15 years ago, like it was rural.
When I moved there was one stoplight in that town.
So exposure, right? You're saying, I want to model this because he's the only guy with an Escalade and a Range Rover, which like at the time he was. Obviously, Kearney's grown a lot, but like that's crazy. So walk me through just. As this development happens, you're just getting introduced to like wealth, success, these relationships with money. And I feel like where we grew up and just generation in the world, people haven't been exposed to this. It's either like a negative connotation of chasing that or a disbelief that it's ever in their cards.
Yeah.
And you just get exposed to this right away and you take the right gap. Hey, this isn't here. I'm meeting these real people. I can have a piece of this. What's happening in your like world with your family, people in your circle as you're stepping, you just take a ride on a private jet, go to Scottsdale, one of the most affluent places in the country, meet with a guy who's pumping books out and doing sales. Like, how is your lens changing? How fast is it changing?
Yeah. It was crazy. So I didn't actually fly on the jet that time. He flew out on his private jet. And I just remembered, I was like, man, this is something.
This is a new level.
And I don't know what it was. I've had this, it's been a double-edged sword for me my entire life, and it's like my brain just kicks in and I just stop thinking. I just like do it, and sometimes it's great and sometimes it's not so great, because there's different decisions that need to be made.
Yeah.
And it happened so quickly. Like I remember when Dean came, him and Steve were great friends.
Yeah.
Worked a long time even before I got into the game. And I remember Steve was like, hey, I want you to come meet Dean Graziosi over at my office. He's flying in to meet you. He's like, come over here. And your dad worked at corporate, and I worked over here at customer service. And like, I rarely ever went to corporate, so I was already like shaking. I was like, had my buttoned-up shirt, had some slacks on. Like I was dressed for it.
Yeah.
And I got in there, and I remember talking to your dad. I was like, man, I'm pretty nervous. And he's like, don't be. He's like, he's here to see you. He's like, this is you. And it was just like, he's like, just don't think, just go. Yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. And it's always been like that. So when I flew out when I came out to Scottsdale, I mean, it was a massive shift from a town of 2,500 people, one stoplight, to Scottsdale, which is...
This is the eruption of Scottsdale, too.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And it's like you're right there in the mix of things. I mean, Dean already had millions and millions of dollars coming in every single year. And so I just like... was attached to him. So I would everything that he would do, I would go with him. We'd go out. We'd have a great time. We were boys. And he was just like teaching me the trades of the game. And so like I didn't have a chance of having imposter syndrome or all these other things that usually stop people from actually doing it. I was just like, just go. Like I didn't
full
think.
Throttle.
Yeah. And I don't know why I was able to do that. But it's like mindset's 80% of the game. And that's usually what either gets people out of where they are to where they want to go, or it sticks them and it creates a lid for them, like John Maxwell will say, the law of the lid. And it's just one of those things. And I was blessed enough to be around the right people and to just have my eye on the prize, which first it was money. I wanted the Escalade. I wanted the Range Rover. I wanted what your dad had. And I don't know what it was, but it was just like there was no decision making.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing you just brought up because I feel like this is something that is important for people to understand. You're in a place now where, obviously, as you continue to work with Dean has massive impact. Him and Tony, Grant and Brant, right? The people that you're encountering with, the mission, the reach, the touch, the service that's given. Obviously, there's millions and millions and billions of dollars that's been created in the industry, the self-education and service. But you get in initially on, hey, I want to have these things for my life. And I think it's important for people to understand, like, that's not like a bad thing to get you moving.
No.
And I feel like it's negatively perceived sometimes for people, but it's like, you got to go learn how to get it. And whatever gets you in the game, it's probably never going to keep you in the game because stuff changes. At what point does the mission start changing? What point does your relationship with the finances, with the money, with the career, with the space start to like evolve?
I think for me, it was like when I actually didn't have to think about money anymore. Like majority of everybody in the entire world has to think about money.
Yeah.
Like they have to think about where their money is going to come from the next week, if they can make the credit card bill, if they can make the mortgage bill, if they can afford. I mean, food's crazy right now. Gas is crazy. I mean, gas in Arizona. I was literally looking at the gas here. It's $3. Gas in Arizona is about $6. It takes me $200 to fill up my truck. And we got 3 cars too, and we're always changing them out. And I get so lazy because I'm like, oh, this is out of gas. Let me just drive this car today. And then my wife's like, you always do this. Like, I always have to be the one filling up the gas. But like, I don't ever think about it. Like, it's not like I make, all this money that I'm like, okay, I'm forever, I never have to work again. But you get to a point where that doesn't matter anymore because Dean always told me, he was like, and I love Dean. Dean was a mentor for me. I worked with him for 13 years.
Was it that long?
Yeah.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, because I was working with him ever since I was 17. So 17 to 30, and then I started, Grant's and Brandon's technically my second job. It's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a ride, dude.
Yeah, it was great. But like, Dean always told me, he's like, man, once you start making like 250, life is almost the same after. And I think with inflation, it was probably more like 400. That it's like after 400, it's like you don't really, it doesn't matter. I mean, yes, you can start making a couple million dollars a year, and then like have a bigger house, but like your lifestyle is usually the same. And so where it shifted for me was when we launched Mastermind.com. And I was able to see the impact that we were making. Like, I always knew it in the real estate, but it was cool because we'd have like this girl that had to buy a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for her kids because she wanted to buy Dean's book, and it was $20. And she read it 8-9 times, and then now she was making a couple $1 million in New Jersey just by wholesaling deals. So I would get a little bit of that, but there was just something about Mastermind.com that blew up so quickly, that really looked at and was like, man, this is cool. This is the impact I wanted.
Dude, and I love that because even in my world on a super, super small level, dude, I'm a huge fan of Dean, Grant, all these. I feel like I just grown up in this space of just the self-education.
Your dad created it.
It is interesting, isn't it, right? The guru behind the guru that nobody knows, except for the gurus. But, dude, I feel like that space, there's things that you can get from those guys that are operating in that, and there's so much service, so much impact, and there's almost like this perception that some of it's a facade or that it's not real, but you're behind the scenes with these guys, with Dean for years. You're getting connected to Tony, Russell, like anyone who's in the space, you're getting access to, and you're seeing the ops. What are the skills, what are the mentalities that you started to pick up that you realize the rest of mainstream is missing out on?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I think it's the big think, like being around these guys, everybody. We did stuff with Larry King, we did stuff with like Trent Shelton, we've done Brendan Burchard, like everybody in the space, like they just think so big and against the norm. Like they don't like. I remember when I started working for NMR, my teacher, because I was doing it through CEO, she almost wanted to kick me out because she's like, they're infomercials, they're scams.
It's a scam.
Yeah. You go on to
especially back then.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, I don't care. Like I'm working for this guy. Like I saw the Escalade, I saw the Range Rover, saw the path, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And we went through, and we had to get the principal involved because I'm like, why would the CEO does not COE does not discriminate on who you actually want to work for. And so we ended up winning, and I was like, okay, cool. I only had like 3 months left of school. Yeah. But I say that because like when you can actually think through something and not care what everybody else thinks, that's what makes you successful, because you know deep down inside you that this is the right direction, or even if it's not the right direction, you have already made the commitment to actually just go through with this direction, and then you just make a small pivot at the end. Like leaders have to be able to make decisions, whether they know that they're right or wrong, just to make a decision, and then you figure it out. But all of these people have such big thinks, and like the way that they like, and it's crazy because being the guy behind the guy, my wife and I were talking about this last night. It's hard, like because you have this. He'll come in, Grant will come in one day, or our mission is to influence and affect and help 1 billion people. Wow. Like, that is a massive mission. Huge. And every time you think that you're doing good, he's like, hey, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do this big? Why you get 500,000 opt-ins in a challenge? And he's like, man, I wanted 1 million. And then, like, and he's just always trying to push you. And it's like, some people will be like, dude, we just made $100 million on this launch or whatever it was, right? And he's like, yeah, but we could have made 200 million. And I'm like, you're right. We could have. And so the think is just like insane. And then the second thing is obsessive. Like they just like go deep and pay for whatever they need, get it, cut a check for speed, be around the right people, learn as much as they possibly can, and then they just do.
That one is something where I'm at in just my career development, paying for masterminds, paying for courses, paying to do whatever, get the right who's in the room, right? Like Dean and Dan Sullivan talks about all the time. But that's one I feel like for most of mainstream is like the hardest to understand.
Yeah.
People strike $100K for college, but it's like $5,000 to go be in the right room, learn from somebody who's doing the marketing, doing the funnels, creating the systems, do all that stuff. Just seems like, why the heck would I do that?
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit, because that's the whole world. Like, the most successful people in the influencer business space right now, they're paying, and it's almost their relationship with money is so utility. Like, it's just a tool, it's a resource, it's current, it's moving. It's like, how have you seen these people, like you just talked about, right? Like, they'll do whatever it takes to move the needle to get the process. And like, I feel like mainstream money's the end goal, and for them, like, money's just a means to get the real things going.
Yeah, money is just a way to get access to whatever you want. And what most people see is like they'll spend $1,000 on a phone or $2,000 on a PlayStation or whatever it is. Like, I don't even know how much they cost, but it's a lot of money. But they won't go buy a course for $2,000. That course can actually build onto things and be such a long-term play, but they don't see it. And like, just hearing you talk about Dan Sullivan, talking about Dean, talking about Grant, like, you're in it and you see the power of education.
Dude, I'm
different
deep
type.
in it.
Yeah, of course. I can tell just by like, and I've seen a lot of your stuff too, and I know, but like, I've got paid $250,000 to consult for one day. It was me and one other guy. We just ran for 8 hours, whiteboarded out, because what we gave him was the keys to how we launched and did $40 million in 3 weeks, how it was able to bring in another $100 million. And so they were able to be like, I know what these guys are doing. I want to do that exact thing. Here's $250,000.
Whatever it takes to get that piece.
Yeah, and we didn't actually want to do it. And we just like threw out a number. We're like, man, what's a number that like it would be nice to do? But at the same time, if they said no, like we wouldn't be mad. And I was like, 250,000. And we're like, cool, that's great. And he's like, all right, cool. Where do I wire? I was like, it happened. Like, I just, it just happened to be like that. And it's happened, it's been a $20,000 day before. It's been a $5,000 day before. It's because when people understand, like, hey, this guy can cut off speed or a time. In my learning curve, I'll do whatever it takes. And I remember there was my first consulting gig. They've been asking me for a couple years. There's some real estate guys out in Scottsdale. And they're like, how much? And I was like, I don't know. I don't really consult. Like, I usually just like, I'm working 20 hours a day with my main job. I don't want to like
do some on the side.
Yeah. And I didn't want to lose focus. And he's like, man, come on, man. Like, come on. And I was like, all right, I'll do it on Saturday. You get 6 hours of my time. That's $20,000. And he's like, okay. And I was like, I remember talking. She's my girlfriend at the time. I was like, babe, $20,000. I was so hype. And we ended up doing it. And then so they took that information. I told them to do an event because they were doing events at $5,000. And I was like, hey, if you want the general public, like, you're teaching people how to get into real estate, I said, you got to go down to a $500 price point and just like open up the top of funnel.
Yeah.
And do it. And they ended up doing it. And they made like $2 million that like. And I think it was 6 months after we met, because they had ramp up time and they had a couple other events. They made $2 million. So what they paid to $20,000,
yeah, the return.
It was a fraction of the cost.
Can't get that anywhere.
No.
That's such an interesting concept too. And I feel, at what point did you start to realize, hey, I'm the guy behind the scene? I feel like, and I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You're working for these mega brands, but you're hand in hand, like, seeing the ops. You get your first, like, this is to you, right? They're saying, hey, Jeremy, like, dude, you're the guy. We want to know what the freak you know. Mm-hmm. Like, and then you're teaching KBB with Dean, right? Like, your guys' whole business prior to, and I do want to get into how you end up with Grant, but your guys' whole thing is empowering people to do what you just did. Mm-hmm. When you guys are packaging this and bundling this, what are you seeing people's imposter, limiting belief is, I've got this knowledge, it's not worth this, or 2 or 3 steps ahead isn't worth this, or it is worth this?
Yeah, Brandon, one of my partners now, Brandon Dawson, he talks about this. He's like, you don't know what you don't know until you know. Like, you know the 2% you know,
Yeah.
The 2% you don't know, and then there's the 96% that you have no flipping clue what's actually it is, and then you get hit in the face, and you hope that you can actually figure it out. That's why 97% of all businesses fail in 10 years. Like, it's because they just don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think like what most people just don't see behind it is like the power of it. It's wild.
Just the value.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys, at least when talking about it, right? Like sometimes, and I've even had this limiting belief in Love to Get, where my exposure and, my background, I've seen the exposure of the mega brands, the mega influence, the mega value that's delivered. And there's almost a limiting belief in my head of like, I've helped people create, 250, become great at sales and done real estate investments.
Amazing.
But there's almost this like, who am I to go like compete in that space?
Yeah. You just got to be one chapter ahead. Like,
Yeah.
if you were able to like, to teach yourself what you know now a year ago, you'd be here faster.
Yeah.
And if you were here 3 years ago, you'd be here faster. And like we're all just figuring it out. Like Grant, Brandon, Natalie, Dean, Steve, like it's not like they knew everything. They're still learning every single day.
Just moving.
And I think being behind the scenes and seeing that, it's like these guys don't have it all figured out. They just continue to move forward or fail forward. Most people don't do that because they're just hustling and hustling and hustling. And then goes back to like what you were asking earlier. It's like, I think that some people don't pay for educations because they just don't know what's out there and they don't know if they can get access to it.
For sure. That's for huge. I mean, I think it's becoming more mainstream like than ever. I think my dad's space 20 years ago was like, dude, that's just pure scams. Nobody actually does this 100%. Stuff. And now it's with Instagram and I think the personal platform level that people get to touch these people and see how value this stuff really is. It's, I don't know that I've ever seen more like consumption of it and more people moving into secondary education and all these different things. But I know kind of just pivoting here, obviously you spend all this time, you're doing all these things. I think everyone, I actually have never got to hear this story either. You're working with Dean. Dude, you guys are tearing it up. He does a partnership with Tony. You guys are teaching the KBB. Now you end up 2 years ago with Grant and Brandon doing, in my opinion, one of the coolest things you guys got going on with Cardone Venture, and you're teaching business owners and digging into the finances, digging into the strategies. How did they pull you away?
It was Jared Glenn. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Grant's president. Jared and I just always had this interesting.
Cause is he out in Phoenix?
He's in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in Miami. So he, cause we would go out to Tony's office and do the whole KBB thing. And we'd have, he's got a studio right there in Palm Beach. And, Jared's like, hey, I see you're in Florida. Can you come over to Miami? And it's like a 3-hour drive across the Everglades. And I was like, man, like we're getting ready to like pop over there, but like I'm gonna only be there for a night. We already have all these but we always stayed in touch. And he talk about massive follow-up, like follow-ups, everything, right? Yeah. Every time he'd see me in Florida, or he'd pop a message once a month. And so we would just kind of stay connected for 4 or 5 years. And then he's like, hey, you're not coming to Florida. Screw it. I'm coming to Scottsdale. He said, I'm gonna be out there anyways, because they just opened up their office in Cardone Ventures in 2020, 2021, something like that.
Yeah, recent.
Called it the Grant opening. And so he was out there, and Pete Vargas had actually just invited me to an influencer dinner. It was like 30 of us, and Jared happened to be there. And he's like, I was like, hey man, it's great to see you. Like blah blah blah. I know we have dinner tomorrow. I was like, is this cool? And he's like, well, let's still have our dinner. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So we brought the wives, and we were just kind of like just going back and forth. We have very parallel lives. Like he is to Grant what I was to Dean. His initials are JCG. My initials are JCG. We both have blonde wives. Like it was just like so crazy how similar it was. So we instantly just hit it off. And I could tell he was like asking a couple questions, like that he was going to offer something. And I remember leaving the restaurant, and I was like, hey babe, I think he's going to offer something. And she's like, would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely not. I said, I was just like so in with what I was currently doing. Yeah. I could see the bigger picture, and I was like, that's what I want to do. And so he texted me that night, and he's like, hey, I'm just going to cut right to it. He's like, would you be open to an opportunity? And I was like, and I don't know, something was like, I'm always open to opportunity. I probably won't, say yes, but I'll listen. Mm-hmm. And he's like, if you're saying there's a chance, go to this address, meet Brandon. I was like, all right, cool. So I went over to Cardone Ventures office and met Brandon, and like, if you've heard Brandon speak for 5 minutes, you know that like the dude just like
intelligent.
Oh my gosh, he sold his last company for 151 million, 77 times EBITDA. It was just like,
Which seems impossible.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like it's still one of the highest valuations ever, like on a privately held company. And I was just like talking to him, I was like, man, I don't know anything that you're saying right now.
This is all outside my
And he's like, that's great, because I don't know anything that you're saying right now. He's like, that's why we need to get together. And you know, they just made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and they were like, you know, brought me in as a partner. And so it's like, that's so cool. It's a bigger mission. And what I was most excited about was I loved what I was doing with Dean and Tony, but you were teaching people how to get into entrepreneurship, which is, it's not a bad gig, but yeah, sometimes you're teaching somebody to go from a -2 just to a 0, and then a 0 to a 1. And like, it just like the percentage of people that actually take what you teach and apply it is like, it's like less than 10%. It's less than 5%. Right. And I was like, man, if I can come over here to business owners, I had consulted at that time with maybe like 10 or 15 $1 million earners or more, usually right around that the sweet spot of $3 million. And they would take it and they would run with it. Like, that guy paid me 20 grand, he made $2 million. And I was like, man, this is awesome. And I just made the switch, and you know, it's been a great ride.
Dude, that's exciting. It's an interesting that you paint it that way, working from like negative to ground zero, you know, first, second, third step. That's kind of like where Dean's playing ball. But now you guys are doing just these business boot camps. These are business owners in every freaking space, and you guys are turning up their marketing, turning up their sales. I know I've seen Brandon talk about this quite a bit. Follow him. You guys are pouring into their financials, their mindset. You guys have kind of like algorithmically, I've even seen him break down like the exact revenue number per employee type stuff, which is, I'm like, it's super fascinating. Yep. When you guys are meeting with people, and this is so pertinent to our audience, just everybody. Like, I had another guest explain it this way: you got to become a disciple of the numbers. Yeah. What is like the key stuff that you guys realize? Business owners, these are people who are making, you know, $1 million to $3 million a year, you said, but they're still missing the mark on a lot of stuff.
100%.
Like, what are some of the key just things that you guys right off the bat, you're like, dude, this is missing, mindset, technical?
Yeah, and the 1 million is the entry point. So usually we're dealing with the 3 to 5 to 10s. But like, I mean, we just had a $25 million company come in, and they're still missing all these things.
Wow.
Like, there's a series of like 7 things that Brandon talks about. It's called breakpoints. And he talks about from going from 1 million to 125 million, there's a series of 7 things. It's the what, it's the who, it's like the core leadership team. It's when you need to actually hire an executive team, when you actually need to move off of the 27 different systems that you have, and then going into more like an automated systems, like a consolidation, and then like going up the ranks, right?
Yeah.
And everybody, like, it's just like, there's no, you don't really get taught this in school. A lot of it's through trial and error. And so when business owners come in, like, they don't have tracking set up. They don't even have the data. They don't know the numbers. They're having people problems like all of us. They can't attract or retain or develop top talent. Like, everything's the same. We just start them off on square one. It's really like, hey, let's bring you back to the basics. Let's teach you this, because most people do not even have the foundation built. And Brandon talks about this too. It's like, man, would you build a 7-story house without a blueprint, like without an architect coming in and actually laying that out? Most people are barely doing the foundation. Then they put 1 story up, and then 2 stories up, and then 3 stories up, and then it falls and it crumbles, and they're trying to figure out why. It's like, because they didn't actually set up the first few things right.
They don't know what it actually takes
to be able to actually do it. And so we bring people in. We have a foundation. There's like 75 things that we really focus on, and they're done in a particular order. And we just run them through this thing. We've brought, it's based on the data, and then it's based on experience. So there's research that we've done that's over across 4,000 companies, all the different niches and industries that you could think of.
The data you guys have to be aggregating by running this stuff has to be insane.
It's wild. Yeah. And that's why it's just like, when people come in, the only reason why they're not successful is because they just don't take the action. They get something stuck. They get into a rut. They go back to bad habits. But if you come down and you actually do the work and follow the blueprint,
and that's, I feel like, just a life principle, right? Yeah. Like, a lot of this stuff you can't learn in school. It's interesting. People ask me all the time, like, what books should I read? I'm like, honestly, everything I know about finance, I've just been studying business models. The most successful businesses have the best financial habits.
Yeah.
The way that they invest, the way they reinvest, the way they hold, how much cash they keep on accounts, how much asset diversification they have. Like, I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to figure out what they're doing, because if that machine works that well, then I'm trying to run my home that way.
Yeah, 100%. You got to run your life that way.
Yeah, because it's optimized and it's logical. It's data. I listen. I've literally, since you've been there, just been stalking Brandon's stuff, because it's so quantifiable, and everything is data. And like, he approaches with a reason.
Yeah.
This number for this number of employees, because of anything past this, like, that's not a good enough person. You need to get better. You can't scale till you get to here. And I think so often, just taking it back to like the everyday person, because obviously in a business, some people listening are building business, doing different things, but I think everybody has their business, their home, running their personal book, and it's just people scale way outside their means, and they just don't even know why. So as you're working with all the, I mean, obviously there's missing data, missing numbers, missing everything. What about the people that are doing it? What are some of the things, like the mindsets, people coming in that you see contribute to them be the most successful? Because these are people like that unlock somebody who's just like doing 10 million, getting to the 100 million mark, actually like pulling off the big thing.
Yeah, I think the ones that come in and are successful or turn successful when we work are just the ones that actually do it. Like, honestly,
just implementers.
That's the biggest thing, and stay in proximity. Like, some of our best clients. So it was funny. So I started April. I was like, hey, I'm getting married next month. I'm going to go on a honeymoon. I said, as long as that's not a deal breaker. They're like, no, we want you that bad. Like, we're in. And it was funny because Brandon's got a place in Cabo, and that's where we were going, because we didn't want to do like the 17-hour flight. So he's like, hey, why don't you just pop onto the jet and we'll just take you over? And I was like, all right, that's cool. You know? And then I remember we were hanging out over there, and I was like, hey, are you cool if we hang out with them during our honeymoon? I was like, it's probably work a little bit, and then we'll have our time. She's like, yeah. It's like, Teresa was so great during this transition, because it's not an easy transition. It was like 13 years of what I was currently doing, and then she was
relationships,
just like,
friends, circles.
100%, yeah. And so I remember we were hanging out in Chileno Bay, one of the nicest country clubs it was the nicest country club, but still is the nicest one I've ever been to. And I remember I was asking Brandon, I was like, hey, what are the key traits to like some of these most successful people, like our clients? Like, what takes them from, hey, I'm going to buy a $40,000 program from you and not do anything with it, versus the people that go all in? And he's like, honestly, it's everybody that comes through all of our stuff in the order that we actually do. So we have a $5,000 program, then we have a $40,000 program, then it's our platform, which it's a $190,000, where we lay out the next 10 years of your business. You get a 300-page blueprint of like, here's what your expansion plan looks like. Here's what your marketing plan should look like. Here's what your finances should look like. Here's all the things. We color code it with green, yellow, red. And we're like, this is what you're messing up on. This is what you're kind of doing good on. This is what you actually have. And so we lay that out. And then when we give that to people, they're like, this is amazing. Let me go run with it. Or, this is amazing, I don't know what to actually do. And so we go into our SBU unit, which it's anywhere from, it depends on the company or the size of the company, but we're more like fractional C-suites that we actually pop in, and we do your meetings with you, and we're really interested in that company, right? And it's about $500,000 by the time that they come in, from the very beginning and the very end. And
So
I was like,
the highest tier from the entry.
yeah, that's how much money they spend over a course of 18 to 24 months. And so I was like, man, why don't we come up with a program that's called the Elite 125 program? It's $500,000, and let's just offer it to people. And I tell you that because some of our most successful people that have come through recently got into that program because they're just like, I'm all in. Could you imagine cutting a check for $500,000?
That's a big.
Or
even if you're doing $10 million a year, right? Like, if it's not directly correlated to your ad spend, your product, your inventory, you're just like, dude,
yeah,
is this?
Yeah. Or we'll break it up into payments over 18 months, and it's like, 20, 30, 40 grand, whatever it is. And it's because they're committed, and they're like, I'm burning the boats. I'm already investing this. And they get to come to something with us 1 or 2 times a month, and they're staying plugged in. And now some people just like, they'll buy the 5K, and then they'll buy the a la carte stuff, and they'll just do it as they wish. And just those people are very successful too, as long as they stay connected. But the ones that we are like, man, what was that plumber that, fell off? He hasn't been back in a year. It's just like they just fall off because they get stuck. And that's why having a network, like I could only imagine going back to, Kearney when it was 2,500, right? Like, there's not like a lot of people when I was there that were very business oriented, that had the personal development, that was working on themselves, but also could paint that picture. And I was like, man, if like that's a lot of people out there. They just don't have that connection. They don't have that proximity to people to keep them going.
Totally. And that's what I love about the space too, just because even for me, like I'm in the same area. I've had access to it, but I went to Utah, got exposed to it's exploding commerce out there. All of this space is like, it's maybe the Mecca, Scottsdale, Utah, LA, Miami. But just as we're kind of finishing up, changing gears a little bit, I just do want to talk about, I think this is an interesting insight. You've been behind these dudes. You're every day with Cardone. You're every day with Brandon. You're working on people's development at the highest level. For you personally, what's like the impact that you've noticed? Like, what are some of your visions and like things that you're aspiring to now? Like, how much bigger does it get?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think right now it's more of really teaching people how to actually do it. Before it was like teaching, or being the person behind the person and just like building that business. And now it's like, I'm just trying to think of other ways that we can actually get connected with people, because I know, especially with this crazy world that's happening right now, and this like people are going to be struggling. Business owners are going to struggle for the next 24, 36 months, and it's a scary thing, but it doesn't have to be a scary thing. Like it can actually be a really motivating thing, because if you know what to do, it's no surprise that like people are some of the wealthiest people make their come up during down economies, right? Recessions. And so like I'm just trying to think, and I'm building this team, and I'm like I got about 65 people on my team and right now, and I'm just like trying to like think through. I'm like, what can we do to do more right now? Because if we don't, like I feel like the world is on our shoulders right now, because we're like the leading people in small to mid-sized businesses. Yeah. And I'm like, what can we do bigger, stronger, better, faster, more efficiently? How can we dumb it down for people so that they don't get lost in that? And so I shifted from here it is for me, and then here it is for like other people, because then you become friends with these people. I mean, some of my old students from back in the Dean days came to my wedding like last year. So it was great.
That's cool.
You become, you have your close circle, and you're like, when you help people come out of where they are to where they want to go, there's just a newfound appreciation and friendship that you can build with it.
There really is nothing to it. It's hard to explain to people. I have people ask me all the time in my space. It's very similar at way smaller levels, right? But taking more something from the zero to first $100,000, $250,000, whatever. And it's grueling at times, and it's like the hand holding and the breakdown, but it's like when you get somebody and they get to have that moment, like there's I don't know if there's anything more fun, more fulfilling to see somebody hit self-sufficiency levels. Yep. It's so exciting.
It's everything.
Well, dude, you said something that it just spurred a thought. There is a lot of like uncertainty in the market. Like I'm doing real estate, doing business. Every news source is just fear-mongering like crazy right now. You guys have more data than anybody. For people that are thinking about preparing for this, with your guys' data, the stuff you're seeing in businesses, what are the income skills or pieces of their business or pieces of themselves that people need to be thinking or doubling down on to be ready for anything that is coming?
Yeah. Making yourself unique and specialized. Like specialized knowledge is something that is so needed, especially in a down economy, because now it's not like you talked about earlier. You said, there's so many people coming out into the space and teaching what they know. And it's like, that's great. But there's also a lot of people out there that don't actually practice what they preach. They're just teaching it, but they're not actually a business owner for that, right? And so this economy is actually going to dwindle down a lot, or kind of weed out some of those people. And I would say for anybody who's looking to prepare, it's like just get really great at something, whether that's sales, whether that's marketing. Like figure out what you can actually do to drive revenue, and you'll be invaluable in the marketplace. If you're trying to get hired, you'll have when people start to lay off, it's like, oh man, Joe over there, like he's been crushing. He's already made us $1 million this year or whatever it is. Like you're going to be the people that they go to, that they're going to double down into to do even more.
It's interesting that you say. I just wanted to hear from your perspective, because I tell everybody all the time, I get asked this question a lot. Like, dude, if you're restarting right now, I'm going to college, I'm doing this, what do you think I should do? I'm like, dude, honestly, be on the revenue side of something. Learn how to drive revenue through like the lead side, or get killer at sales. Every company needs it. If you get really good, the relationships are there. You don't have to like rely on your resume or somebody else to prove it for you. If you can create this type of sales, or you can lead these type of sales teams, you can lead this type of marketing system, you're invaluable.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you can come into a company and show what you're worth by driving revenue, there's nothing better. And even on the operational side, even if you're like, hey, I like to do systems and processes, and I like to make SOPs, and I like to run the people side of things, and I want to do this, like, you're still driving revenue because you're operating more efficiently and effectively. And so, but I mean, I just come from a world of like, I just know how to generate money and through marketing and sales, and it's like
it's a good skill.
Yeah, it's a great skill, and it's like it's so needed in the marketplace. And like when I see all these companies that I'm working with, they're like, you know, their financial, their balance sheets are going down, their P&Ls are going down, and I'm like, and I look at it, and I was like, how much are you spending in marketing? They're like, oh yeah, we don't. I'm like, you're not spending anything in marketing? They're like, yeah, we're just word of mouth. I'm like, yeah, we'll turn something on.
Yeah,
like throw $2,500 at it or something.
Do you think that just comes from? I think just personally, what I see with everybody, like the whole course thing, not spending money on marketing. To me, it just comes in, it's an inverse negative relationship with money. Like they just don't understand this is a tool. Like, dude, you can't store this. Like it's never to be stored. Mm-mm. And if like the best people in the world who make it through, make the money in the downturns, make money, they're like, dude, spin, turn it up, double down, turn more marketing on, pull more sales, pull more incentives, whatever it takes to move through and like capture more market share.
Yeah, I mean, Grant talks about it all the time. He talks about, he's like, dude, you want to be broke. Like, you want to spend all your money. Now, I mean, obviously, if you're coming in, like, that's way out of context, right? Like, you want to be able to invest your money, but like, you want to either give all your money to your financial advisor, a real estate fund, you want to put it into something, you want to invest it, but like, you want to have zero money in your bank account because you'll work for it. Like, you'll just continue to have that grind and that hustle. But, you know, invest back in your company. Like, most people, the majority of people don't spend a lot of money on marketing. Like we're spending between the two companies, we spend $2 million a month. Wow. And like, I want to be able to double that this year.
That's cool.
Like, and it's like, but like we're trying to reinvest because, you know, just on that, we've brought in, I don't know, a couple $100 million. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's a $500,000 company or what, you know, we'll do $130 million just on the Cardone Venture side this year. The strategies and the rules still apply. It's just a different vehicle. Like,
that's super interesting. Well, dude, I could pick your brain all day, but I know you're in town to see some fam. Just in closing, for everyone listening, everyone's either got a business or they got their home, right? Just you're with Grant, he's doing real estate, Dawson's doing this. You have access over your time to maybe some of the best business builders, but they're also some of the best investors. Just from, if you have a couple keys for everybody right now, like what are you doing with the excess cash? What are just some principles that you live by now from your exposure to live within your means? Like, what are you investing in? And then just like you said, what fuels you to keep it going?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, you know, what I'm doing right now is diversifying, having multiple streams. You know, that everybody talks about that, but it's true. It's like, I didn't really have multiple streams until probably like 4 years ago. Like, it was just like I had two. And now it's like you just, because especially coming into this, like you just want to be able to have a little bit of real estate, you know, stuff in the other stock market, stuff like in some investments, like, and there's stuff that you're going to get burned with. Like I have some risky stuff, and then I have some like really low, just like steady Eddie stuff. And so it's just diversifying. So that's what I would say, number one. And then two is just like, it's just understanding what to actually go for, like having a bigger purpose. Right now it might be money, and it's not a bad thing to be like chasing the money, but chase it for the right reasons. And right now it's like, I just want to make as much money as possible because I want to be able to spoil the heck out of my nephew and nieces. You know, we give a lot to charity. We give a lot to our church. We do things like, you know, I was able to bring my parents out to Scottsdale and Sedona, and you know, we're not super, like we're like average, right? Mm-hmm. And I was able to just pay for everything. It was great. We went out to all these nice dinners, and I remember my mom and my dad were like, "Well, we've never ate like this," and I was like, "This is great." Like it was just so awesome to see that on their face.
It's cool to
like,
give that to people.
Yeah, and so it's like it's not for me anymore. Well, it is technically for me because I get the appreciation out of it, and I get to see this. But like, I get to see it through other people's eyes. And so whether that's with charity, whether that's with family, whether that's with friends, being able to loan money to people, and be like, all right, that might not come back. Great, I'm totally fine with that.
It's okay.
And it's just like, those are the things that drive me.
Yeah.
Now there's other things that might drive other people, but like I am now at a point where I just love to either give or help my team make as much money, because to be able to show your team what they can actually make, and we call them PPF goals. We call them personal, professional, and financial goals.
That's cool.
We talk through them with our team members every single one-on-one, which is every 2 weeks. We're like, hey, where are you at with this? Did you hit this? Hey, where are you at with this? What can I do to support you to actually, pull this forward with time and money?
That's cool. I need to implement that.
Yeah, Natalie Dawson talks about it in her book, Teamwork. You'll love it.
Yeah.
But like we have this, we have Slack, right? We have this all team Slack, and there's a couple hundred people in there, and people are like posting this. One of our financial advisors just posted, and she's like, I just achieved 2 PPF goals, and it was be able to go on a trip, it's be able to pay off a credit card, it's be able to buy a car, and that's I literally get goosebumps every time I talk about it, because like seeing that is everything.
Dude, I love it, and I think that's a piece. Just you guys have that in a group message, and so many people are afraid to talk about it. But it's like when you're talking about your personal financial goals and where that, like, dude, it is exciting. It should be shared, and talk about find the answers. Like,
yeah,
it's fulfilling.
Yeah, I literally was just listening to a conversation with Brandon the other day, and someone was like, man, you're flashy. Like, you got the 10X on your jet. You're wearing a $200,000 watch. You talk about money all the time. Like, what about those people that, like, have told you, like, hey, you're not supposed to be talking about money. That's like this thing. And he goes, the guy was from Italy. He's like, what's the favorite sport in Italy? He's like, soccer. And he's like, okay, what if soccer didn't have a scoreboard? Like, what if soccer didn't have goals? They just kicked the ball around. He's like, would you go? And he's like, never. And he's like, that's what I think about money. Money is just a score. And if you can show people how they can actually score, and then they can see that they're winning the game, they're winning the life, they're winning those professional, financial, personal goals, right? They're winning with their church. They're winning with their charities. They're winning with like all this. It's like money is not the end all be all, like you said earlier. It's just a vehicle to be able to get you to where you want to go and be able to do things and not have to worry about it.
Dude, I love that comparison, because it really is. Nobody ever beefs or like criticizes somebody like, hey, did you go, try to get better at your craft? Did you go watch film? Did you go put some extra time in the gym to be a better athlete? No. Well, why would you be upset that we're trying to make more money? Why would you think it's a bad or greedy or self-aggrandizing thing to go spend time learning and educating yourself to increase your financial? I mean, it's the scoreboard of your business. It's the scoreboard of your career development. It's important.
Yeah,
develop it.
And all money is, it'll just continue to like maximize who you are as a person. So, there are other people out there that like, it's like, oh my gosh, but it's just them with money. But there's like people like you and so many of you listening. It's like, you're a great human, and money's just going to make you even better. Like money, like it's just better impact.
One of the favorite quotes I've ever had that Dean says, it's probably just going to like put you in a flashback. Anyone who says, money can't buy happiness has never earned enough and given enough away. Mm-hmm. And just like helped enough causes that they care about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. Like it's I think that came from Richard Branson. Dean was out on Necker Island. Yeah.
That's
blast
cool.
from the past, man.
Dude. Well, I super appreciate you coming on. I know, like we talked about at the beginning, you don't do many of these, but we're lucky to get the man behind the curtain on a lot of these huge projects, dude. So we appreciate it. Where can people keep tabs on you, man?
Just IG, Instagram, just Jeremy Gabbert.
We'll link that, but this is, hopefully you guys take notes. There's a ton of good stuff. If you're not following Jeremy or the people that he's working with, Cardone and Brandon and Natalie, and anyone that he's been involved with, I think it's the most helpful, most impactful space in the economy right now. It's super needed. It's my favorite place. I spend hours every week just consuming, and I'm obsessed with it. It's why I have my podcast. But for all you guys listening, take notes. Anything you don't understand, anything that goes over your head, just like Jeremy said, anything that you don't understand, go look it up. Spend time consuming, diving in. That's how you get better. Be unafraid of the conversation, unafraid of looking dumb. Just go explore. But we'll catch you guys next time on The Money Game.
Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media.
Real money. Real money. Money is the answer.
Y'all be cool, and we'll see you next time on The Money Game.
Money. Yes!